And Eileen's just rebooting, and she's going to be on any second as well.
Arnhem should be joining us as well. Hey, she is.
Yeah.
Excellent. 18.
Gerald, do you have video or... Oh, there we go. Click your video. There we go.
How you guys doing?
Hey, a face to a name.
Good to meet you all.
Mm-hmm.
Too. Let me do some introductions for you, Gerald, so you know who's what. Obviously, you've been dealing with Erin a lot.
Yeah.
Erin is head of our sales department, is also my executive assistant. So anybody needs to try and get hold of me, they know Erin's my gatekeeper. Paige is our in-house graphic designer. She does a lot of WordPress updates and a lot of actual graphic design.
Okay.
Arnhem is our content manager and videographer. So a lot of social media videos she creates and also keeps track on every project and every file and every password and every document. And then Eileen is our social media community manager who actually writes clients and then uses the services of everybody else to produce a great portfolio of work.
Fabulous.
So that's the team.
Great. I appreciate that it is, I think, Christian, you have enough alpha to balance the rest, so I appreciate that it's mostly females on the team. I think that's important.
Well, I'm a dad with 3 daughters. I mean, I don't know what it is, but anyway, I'll take it. We have Willie, obviously, we both know as a mutual connection, and he does all of our SEO. We have Pollux, who does our video, actual filming of video on site.
Right.
But the rest of the team is, pretty much all female.
Awesome. That's great. That's great.
So tell us, we would love to hear directly from you a little bit of the Wahupta story, and obviously the first crop, and just where this is going in terms of the public listing and so on.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, first, thanks everyone for taking the time today to meet with me actually at this point. Sorry, the rest of our team is much like yourselves. We're scattered a bit. Myself, I'm in Langley. One of the founders is in Coquitlam. The CEO is always on an airplane, but his home base is in Parksville on the island.
Okay.
Our COO, Keith Green, Chief Operating Officer, is in California. And that's kind of our upper management team. And then we have a bunch of verticals and individuals within those kind of vertical structures. To give you some context, Wahupta is roughly about a year old now. We started off, a group of us, to give you kind of the story, a group of us started off when medical cannabis was going to be legalized. One of the first provinces that was going to do that was Manitoba. And a kind of group of professionals got together. The way Manitoba approached it at that point is they were going to give out provincially, they were going to give out 5 licenses to 5 companies to create brick and mortar, e-commerce, all that. We had a group of, I was invited to a group of individuals who put together an RFP for that. And it was a really, really well done project. When the licenses came out, it became clear that even though they had an official kind of opening for everyone to apply, before that was even offered, all those licenses were spoken for, which is not surprising within government structures. So that's how that went. Now we could have kept going and fighting the good fight. We were all kind of in that, at that point, well versed on what was happening with cannabis and kind of legalization. However, companies like Aurora and Canopy were already growing at an exponential rate at this point. So we said, okay, well, do we want to go fight that good fight? We kind of looked back at the industry and said, let's look at a different thing. We believe that cannabis is going to be something, but we actually feel that in a global perspective and with a longer future, hemp was really the way we wanted to go. the non-psychoactive side of the medicinal treatments that are available in kind of that world. For those of you who are not well versed, hemp is I guess you could say the cousin of cannabis. It is completely a legal plant in Canada to grow, assuming you have a legalized strain of that, and the legalization happens at the seed genetic level. There's one specific seed called X59 that generally everybody uses, and once you have the hemp plant, you grow it, and it grows outdoors generally over acres and acres. It's what you do with it that then gives it a greater amount of value. And it can kind of be broken down into three parts. You got your long fibers, which can be used your fibers can be used for anything like clothing. It can replace plastics, twine, those kinds of things. Arguably, hemp can ultimately be one of the key variables that could rid the world of plastics, to be frank. The other side is the hurd that comes out of the hemp plant, the stalk, and that can go into things like hempcrete, which is an alternative to concrete, and other. It's a very strong and strong fiber, so there's some uses there. And then ultimately there's the biomass, and you've all probably heard of CBD, that the CBD extract, or the oils that can come out of that. The body has receptors that you are naturally innately have within your body, and it's amazing that they're still trying to figure out how this is the case, but we have all these receptors in our bodies, and we can basically, our receptors will completely adhere to CBD, and specifically with a combination of CBD and THC, which is what come out of cannabis, creates it's a natural inflammatory within the body. So if we look at things like disease, almost all diseases really are an outgrowth of inflammation. So we deal with inflammation, and I don't just mean that inflammation within the sense of, okay, I have arthritis, which is obviously a common thought, but there are tests currently being done with ADHD, autism, and a variety of other illnesses that CBD is attracted to. So there's a variety of ways we're looking at this. So that gives you a sense of what we're doing within the hemp world. Wahupta specifically, we launched with, like I said, about a year ago. Our original thought was to, at first, everybody goes out there and says, we're going to do thousands and thousands of acres. But what you find is the ability to scale natural farming practices to that is the challenge. It's also the race. So there's a reason that hemp is still growing, and that's because the farming practices around that are not currently able to meet the need. The need for CBD, the need for hemp exceeds, the demand currently exceeds the supply, and a big part of that is just how do you process it. We are currently involved, we have a bunch of verticals within Wahupta, but to give you context, we're looking at technologies right now that are literally looking to do tons of biomass per hour. Because if you think about it, there are about 1,500 seeds that we look at within acreages. So if you multiply that by thousands of acres, the amount that we have to harvest, crop, roll into bales, and then get into some sort of a technology, a decorticator or anything like that. And all these words are going to mean something to you guys over the course of time here. That's the challenge. So we came out of 2018, our first harvest with 975 acres, which arguably is the largest in Canada. Now, Canopy just put out a press release saying they were in the 1500s, but we know they actually only did 600 of those themselves. They had to outsource the rest. So we do know we're beating them, which is a really great thing, as Canopy Growth is probably the largest player in this market. So we're doing really, really well, and currently are held as a private company. So we are planning on going public. Jonathan alluded to that. We are planning on going public. We were hoping to be public already in February. That won't be the case because we are still undergoing our audit. I don't know how familiar you guys are with companies going down that IPO process, but we are doing our internal audit before we can do that and go into the exchange. And fortunately and unfortunately, we are constantly week to week. I'm sorry for not being available, but it's pretty crazy. We are always something new. We've had 3 partnerships that we've grown, one of which we just came out of. We did a 10% purchase of a company out of Colombia called Milagro Pharmaceuticals, and that recent addition added time to our audit because now that has to be incorporated into our audit. So to give you guys some context there, we've acquired, since inception, in October, we acquired 100% of a company called Current Technologies out of the island, which is an extraction technology. To be honest, it's more of a boutique. It's great for us to have. Externally, it looked really exciting because we had our own internal extraction technology. To be honest, it's a boutique. It'll be for smaller scale. For the scale that we're growing industrial hemp, that technology actually cannot keep up with what we need. So we're actually already looking at additional partnerships for a larger machine called a decorticator, which is, I mentioned that earlier, which are technologies that can take the bales of biomass that you get off the crop, roll it through, and it'll break it up into fiber, hurd, and green matter, which I talked about earlier. So Current Technologies was a big one. That being said, we're going to have a press release probably within the next 2 weeks. We're just waiting for the final tax numbers. We acquired that company in October, but we were already playing with what they were doing, even in the really a quarter in terms of their Q4 ownership. We moved them from a company that averaged a yearly revenue of about $100,000 to $150,000 a year to nearly $500,000 is what they've acquired in just Q4. So that's still going to be a fabulous narrative that we can play with, even though we're technically not using them as our own extractor. We are selling their technologies, and we then use that to leverage our second partnership, which was 10% of a company called Naturally Splendid, which is a hemp food company. They're actually based out of Maple Ridge, is where their headquarters are at. They're really a global player. The powerful part of that is, as we enter into this cannabis market, there's a lot of apprehension, not just from the end user and from the government, but from brick and mortar stores wanting to make sure that they don't get their hands dirty as they get into this market. For example, you can, officially, people are going to start being able to create, say, a cannabis pill. I'm just going to throw that out as an example. Well, is London Drugs or Walmart going to carry that? And if so, do you think they want to risk their brand with just a new company saying, hey, we're legal, we can make this product, but what is, the quality control and all the variables that go into carrying those kinds of products? Or, ultimately we're going to have hemp foods and THC or THC foods. Currently, we're in discussion, a side company of one of the partners we're working with is in conversations with Shoppers Drug Mart for infused THC and CBD infused foods that they're going to carry there. So if you think about that, how are they going to partner with brands? And so that was our strategic entry into Naturally Splendid, as they have currently contracts with 20,000 points of distribution. So shelf space is really why we made that partnership. In addition, we included our purchase by supplying them with extractors. So that gets back to the first play we did. So we can use our own technologies, even though we're not using it, we can leverage it for other partnerships. So that's what we did with Naturally Splendid, which has been very powerful. You guys, do I have to have you guys sign NDAs to share some of this stuff, or is that pretty well implied, Jonathan?
It's absolutely implied.
Great, because one of the things nobody's supposed to know this, it's internal, but Naturally Splendid, for example, does all of Vega's hemp-based product. Now, that's a big secret because Vega, is a brand that likes to carry its own name. So they do a lot, just to give you an idea of the scale of what Naturally Splendid does, that's a pretty big name. Yeah. And they do a lot of those. Freshie, you probably know the name Freshie. It's a pretty big brand already. Everything to do with their hemp-based products comes from Naturally Splendid as well. So they're a pretty large player in this. So we're 10% owner of that company. So that was and then Milagro is a company out of Colombia. They have 2,500 acres in Colombia. They have 37 government licenses, which is the big thing in South America, is to be able to get government licensing around that. And so they have a great piece of land. They are doing proprietary technology on the delivery system of these technologies. For example, how are you going to take your CBD? Is it going to be a dropper in terms of a liquid? Is it going to be a pill? They actually have a sublingual strip, which is fabulous, to be honest, in terms of delivery system. One of the best ways to get it is to put it on the side of your cheek, and your body absorption goes up about 70%. So things like that is where we're all, I'm trying to quickly run through it.
Yeah, no, I love this. Is great. I'm recording.
It's getting you to understand the verticals. We said from the beginning we were going to be seed to sale, and we really do. We have everything from farmers and people involved in the seed genetics to the processing, to the extraction, to the technology and the manufacturing of the building and manufacturing and sales of the technology, to ultimately getting down to retail sales, and we'll also be a distributor because we'll get into the isolates of CBD and we'll probably be selling it to places honestly like Aurora and Canopy will probably retail CBD oil and whatnot to them. So that gives you a sense of the scale. Right now we're forecasting, I think right now we have secured somewhere in the 30,000 range of acres. But again, it's not, acres is something we can get probably all day long. It's getting not just partners, but smart partners that have the ability to farm this. Our model, what makes it unique, so that gives you an idea of what we're doing in terms of Wahupta and hemp, but what also makes our model very unique is it's right in the name, Wahupta. We have a big part of what we're doing is around First Nations and Aboriginal play. We originally started, and the company we'd done with the Manitoba, if I go back to that, was a company called HOA, and we combined or partnered with First Nations in Manitoba, and that's why that was going to be a big, powerful and play in how we entered into Wahupta, because we had some very strong partnerships and inroads into First Nations. So a lot of what we can do is, as the legalities of hemp and CBD catch up, we can kind of sit a bit on the outside of that because we can do things on native land that others cannot do. So from a business perspective, that made sense. But also what our model was that, this is $1 billion industry. So to give you a sense, even on 975 acres of land, we will probably make about $21 million off that. So that was kind of a proof of concept. So proof of concept in year one is worth $21 million off 975 acres. We are looking to expand to 30,000 acres next year. We will be in
How often can you crop? Is it once a year?
In Canada, you can crop once a year, but then that's a great question because it talks about our partnership in Colombia. They'll probably be in 3 because of the climate out there. They can be probably somewhere around 3 to 4 times a year. So even though they only have 2,500 acres, they can rotate their crops pretty quick. So that's a great question. But it's the logistics. It's the logistics of, okay, how are we going to crop that many acres? Then when we have these huge bales, what are we going to do? How many decorticators or extractors do we have to have in one facility? We literally have to create in every significant farming partnership we have to go in and build processing plants, because you just can't move that much biomass. It's just not fathomable. So it's pretty crazy what's happening here.
So yeah, all the trucks coming with. I mean, there was truck after truck after truck. I mean, there were huge trucks.
Well, I don't know if you guys went on the website, but for fun, we put up a video of. So if you guys do, of Cadron Farms, which is one of our partners, out Manitoba, Saskatchewan, actually, but we call it the fleet coming home, and you can actually, I don't know if you watched that, but it's literally the machines driving through, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty good stuff. We actually keep saying that once we kind of get time, we're all going to go out there and do like tractor races and stuff just because we can. But yeah, so getting back to the First Nations place. So what we do, especially with First Nations partners, is we have quite a lot of First Nations. So if you guys have done any work with First Nations, you know that their coffers are actually quite large, but they're very, very strategic on how they spend their money. And so we're working with them to create models that make sense for them. Not a lot of people come in and they feel very used on the kind of partnerships they get into. So we're trying to make a partnership that makes sense, and we have. Like we've already done one of this first crop included the Peguis Nation, and they're just ecstatic on what was able to be achieved with them. Because when we go in, what we do is we lease their land. We lease their land at the going rate, so they lose nothing there. Sometimes we're actually overpaying them, but we're going in. If it's a First Nations play, we will actually bring in professionals to help educate and train them on proper farming practices. So they get there. Granted, and I'm using the word granted as a pun there, we are all using government grants to help them pay for their own training. So they actually don't pay for it. We get government grants to cover their training. And we have partners in there. And then they get that training, so that's beneficial to them. And then we use their own Indigenous people to do the farming. So that brings employment into the community. And then lastly, when we capitalize or monetize the end crop, we do a profit share model with them. So they really get a variety of benefits along the way. And that's how we do that. A lot of our leases are 5 and 5 leases. So, we're investing in them, but we secure our investment as well. So that's what we do with First Nations plays. We're also doing something very similar with the partnership in Milagro and Colombia, because it's a lot of native Colombians that are doing that. So we're doing something, I think right now, the average farmer there is getting about $2 an hour. I think Milagro is currently paying $8 an hour. So a valued partner, and that's why the government is on their side. And so are the locals.
Okay. I got 3 pages of notes already. Everybody else's brain's probably swimming. That's why we record these. So Arnhem is waiting for access and design elements and so on, so we can logos and all of that. So that's one step. Adam's our storyteller, and she's going to be the interface of coming up with ideas that we can send to you and say, what do you think? So we can get our head around where that's going to go. And Paige will jump in with more graphics, as we start to build that through. And then
absolutely.
And then Erin's going to be the project manager of the interface of everything that goes on. And then I'll jump in with strategy, and you allow me and get to know each other better and come up with great ideas. So
great.
That is fantastic.
Great. So I'll give you guys also maybe some insight on, and you guys, please, we're obviously I'm going to look at you to run with the ball. I'll be your main point of contact on this. And for you guys who don't know, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Wahupta. We have outside of Wahupta, I also own a marketing design company myself. So I do have access to those resources as well. So we can pool those together and share them. And we have a lot of partners that we've partnered in with that are going to jump on board. To give you kind of a, 30,000 foot kind of perspective on, I think, what we're looking to do in the next little while here, so you can see what our objectives are on a corporate level, and then they can tie in. We are not that concerned yet. I'll say it very clearly, and people will be upset that I'm making the statement, but when it comes to branding, be bold, don't be gray. So we are not going to worry about the end consumer right now and educating people. And I say this a bit tongue-in-cheek because I'm going to turn around and say the exact opposite in a minute, but we're not worried about educating people to buy any product that we are going to ultimately carry. We are 6 months out of bringing a product to market. We are right now in a race, an industrial hemp farming race, and that's where we're running. And a big part of that is scaling up, and the way we're going to scale up is we need money. We have a lot of it, but we need more of it because it is literally, as much as we make millions go up in buying and building technology. So it sounds like we're making a lot of money, but it goes out about as quick as it comes in. So it's a lot. Our big focus right now why I'm saying I'm going to turn around in a minute, because if our focus is to acquire money and to communicate the scale and growth of Wahupta and ultimately attract investment, is where we're at right now, especially as we move into our IPO. What we need to do is, as much as educate people on how great Wahupta is, there is still that hesitance in the market as people need to understand what things like hemp-based products can do, what CBD is as a non-psychoactive health and wellness product. So there is some education that even an investor needs to know so they can feel comfortable and go, I'm not investing in anything illegal. No, you're not. So in Canada, it's a bit of a hiccup. In the States, a lot of, it's state by state regulation. A lot of states are already fully CBD compliant and open to CBD. And right now, Trump just signed that U.S. farming bill, which basically makes hemp farming fully legal. What they do with it in CBD extraction, we're getting into a gray area. And again, we're back to state by state regulation. So that, I just wanted to give you guys that. Also, we are, we're just needing people to, on a social level, understand that we are not small boutique. We are one of the larger players, but we've been so head down. Literally, even our own management team has been, in the trenches getting this done, that we haven't lifted our heads up enough. And that's why we're bringing you guys on board to resonate what's happening. We don't have the time to do it and share it. So it's letting everyone know that that's happening. We do have over 200 investors already at a private level. And that's pre-IPO. So now we're going to go public. We are looking to go public in March, and we need as much power and punch on that as we can as well.
Okay.
And I've even gotten into all the events. We will, in the next week here, I also will be locking down all the events we'll be going to in terms of trade shows, et cetera, et cetera.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So, guys, what do you think? These guys were already pumped when I first told them about our first meeting. So,
well, I think we definitely need another call. Might be something worth me even hopping on the phone with you, Gerald, just so I can get just kind of go into some of the sort of the timeline a little bit, and just get myself familiar so that I know, because Jonathan's the strategy, so he'll be the vision. And I just want to make sure that what we're doing aligns with what your expectations are.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
Awesome.
Cool. Fun. By the way, I take CBD oil just to FYI, so I was like, I'm so familiar with it.
You're sold.
Yes.
And I think,
yes, I am.
I think, Eileen, you said you had some experience of it with your mom as well, right?
Yeah, my mom uses it. She's 84 years old, and my dog, who is 13 years old, also uses it.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
To be honest, guys, not only do I and my wife use it, to give you guys a personal story, as I got educated on this, my wife actually, she works for the ministry. She works with children with some sort of developmental delay and all that. So her specialty is kind of the psychosocial understanding of children and their development. So we always argue that my daughter, who's 10, is a smart, and her mind goes at a mile a minute, and I think that's her strength and her downfall. Arguably, we say if she was born to a different family, she'd probably be on medication for ADHD because but she's a spitfire. And we, just to test it out, and even we're like, okay, adults, it's one thing, and pets are one thing, but you give it to a child. So, we bit the bullet, and before we medicated with something else, we tried CBD. We did it about 3 months ago. We started her, and I didn't tell her what we were giving her. I just said, this is some new medicine. It was going to help her focus, is what we said. And 2 days later, she said, can I have more? And I said, well, how does it make you feel? And she said, it calms my mind down.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And, it does.
It was pretty impressive to hear from, her not really knowing what she was taking, but just to get that reaction from her. She's in a Montessori program, so really pushed hard at school. And she was 3 weeks behind. And a week after taking CBD, she went from, she was in 1 week able to catch up 3 weeks worth of work. So, once she just got her little brain focused, she was again back to just bang on working. So I'm a believer, I'm the old, I'm not just a member, I'm a user. So definitely everybody, we just were in Mexico for a corporate retreat, where we're working through a lot of team building events and stuff like that. We didn't share that on social media because as much as it really was fabulous what we were doing, I can say we're in Mexico, but I don't really have a tan because we were in a boardroom from 8 to 4:30 every day. Yeah. I knew that and we knew that, but if you share with your shareholders that we were in Mexico, suddenly they think that, we're not. So we didn't share that. But on the table every morning was, a tincture of CBD that we all take. So we're all strong believers in what it is, and we have parents. Some of our team have parents that are dealing with things like cancer and other ailments, and are working through that with our parents with those products. So we're believers in them and believe in the quality of them.
Love it. And I have a 20-year-old, and everybody knows Maddie. I mean, Maddie's off the scale when it comes to social ability, but try and put her in a classroom and help her study. She dropped out of school at grade 8. She just couldn't do it. But
right.
Smartest kid I know. And she was not getting Ritalin, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, we're all meeting tomorrow as a team physically, apart from Erin, who lives up in the Great White North. But
who does?
Erin, she's a Prince George girl.
Oh, okay.
But the rest of us are all Abbotsford here, so in Chilliwack. So we're meeting tomorrow. I think that's a great start, guys. Yeah, amazing. I got multiple notes, and we got this recording. So when do you think you might be able to get some stuff over to Anand?
You talking to me?
Yes.
Let me bring it up right now as I'm talking to you. Erin, I'm gonna assume it's the onboarding document you sent me. Am I right?
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
Probably highlighted somewhere in my emails with a little red note saying you got to do this. Let me just see what that looks like. I'm gonna look at what that onboarding overview requires. Okay. Well, it's probably not the time for me to do it right now with you guys there, but I'm gonna send you all the assets that you can get. I'll do that right now because I'm going to stop for lunch. So I'll do that before I stop for lunch, because once I stop for lunch, my phone will go off, and then I'll be they'll completely.
Yes. Awesome.
So let me do that right away. In terms of kind of some deliverables, and not specific deliverables that we're expecting for you, but just know what we're doing. Everything in terms of social media channels, none have been established. Go crazy. In terms of website, we are right now, we'll be finalizing on Monday. We have a meeting because we're going to be doing stuff. The website is its current iteration was really phase 1. We are now going into phase 2, and that'll be ripping out all those verticals we just talked about, from genetics, seed development, to farming, to our social and community development. All those little pieces, our science, we have white papers that are being developed by our chief scientific officer. All those little, we're calling them almost subdivisions of the company, are what the next phase of the website's looking to blow out. If nothing else for the beginning, just paid each one having its own section of the site. So,
will that be a WordPress site, Gerald?
It's a WordPress site, so it should be easy for you guys to jump in and do anything that that you want to do.
I was just hoping it wasn't Willie's.
Willie, you know, and I have always a consistent disagreement. I know he loves and has invested and has a fabulous CRM system that he's built, and I won't take away anything from it. However, websites, to me, as much as they need to be technically sound, really they just they just simply need to be a tool or a platform that we can communicate to our end audience on, and WordPress to me is a nice, easy way for a client to be able to get in there. It removes obstacles and just makes it easy, upgradable. 3 years from now, we'll grab it, trash it into the garbage can, and build a new one.
No doubt.
So
great. Thank you very much, my friend.
No problem. Thank you guys again for taking the time. Any other questions before I leave you?
I will follow up if I do, or if we do, for sure, and then we'll just kind of line up the next, you know, interaction.
Yeah.
Once
All right.
Okay.
Done deal.
Thanks, brother.
Great.
All right.
Thanks, Gerald.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye now.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.